what language will we speak in the future? I'm not running statistics about the chance that we'll all speak Mandarin or English separating into a dozen regional languages. No, what we're proposing is a vision of a future where people are proudly speaking Walloon, Coushatta, Malagasy, and Xhosa, or Xhosa. And we're betting you'll speak and understand these too. Well, maybe not these languages specifically, but we're betting on language diversity with higher rates of multilingual people and higher levels of comprehension across populations. Language is a major part of culture and identity. Languages can also encode specific cultural and scientific information about plants or animals, or even share different ways of being, like the idea that giving is wealth or that plants and animals are relatives. I can already see the comment section now. It would be easier if we all just spoke one language. Let me guess, the comment is made in English, and I don't think they'd be too happy if the one language happened to be Cherokee. We know how important language is to people when we hear Americans and Brits demanding that people speak only English. And if you don't know already, the world's human languages are in trouble. On average, every 2 weeks, a language spoken somewhere in the world disappears. Some estimate that by the year 2100, almost half of the 7,000 currently spoken languages will go bye-bye, according to National Geographic. These are grim facts, but it doesn't have to be so. To research for this video, I read Gaeilge, A Radical Revolution by Caoimhin de Barra, a book about reviving the Irish language in Ireland. It's a fascinating book, and I highly recommend it for anyone interested in language diversity or who's currently working to preserve and grow the use of their own language. In it, it quotes the Irish author Aidan Doyle, who says, "What is important for language maintenance is not so much absolute numbers as the social status of speakers. If a language cannot be used in any official context, no business context, and only extremely limited social context, it becomes unlikely for the parents to pass it on to their children, especially if there's also social stigma associated with speaking it." So in our alternate future, we recognize that there's value in all languages and that people speaking their mother tongue or cultural language is to be respected much in the same way we respect people practicing their own religion. So some people are going to speak foreign languages in front of us, and that's okay. In fact, that's great. So when that happens, we start to learn those languages also by being exposed to them. We might only understand the language and be unable to produce it ourselves, which is a form of passive bilingualism like we see it in the movie Dune or Star Wars.
Una puta solo?
Yes, Greedo. As a matter of fact, I was just going to see your boss. Tell Jabba that I've got his money.
Son pichale.
Or maybe we pick up enough to speak these languages ourselves, not so far-fetched with all the language apps that are out there now. So imagine with me, you're walking on your way to class and you stop by a convenience store. The clerk asks you in Nepalese how you're doing. He asks you this every day, so you respond back in English, that you're doing fine. When you ask him to pass you a cigarette lighter, in English he asks which color, in Nepalese. You point to the blue lighter and swipe your credit card. On the street, you bump into your friend from El Salvador. She asks you in Spanish if you finished your homework assignment for class. You respond to her in Spanish because you've been studying it since elementary school. Even though your Spanish is not good, your friend continues to speak with you in Spanish because they like to use the language when they can, and they know that you can always switch to English if you're having a hard time coming up with a sentence. Before class, you hear a song from a friend. It's in the Nigerian language Igbo. You like it, so you follow the musician on Instagram and maybe follow some Igbo hashtags. So now you're passively interacting with Igbo content and culture. And on the street, a man from Moldova asks for questions. He doesn't speak English, but you both realize you speak Esperanto, or perhaps Toki Pona as an auxiliary language, and you're able to send him in the right direction. Sound reasonable? This is likely similar to day-to-day life in Lebanon or Switzerland, but maybe too much for you to imagine in monolingual America. We think it's possible. There's a massive amount of languages being spoken and forgotten in the US every single day. We think that the melting pot might be a little spicier if we promoted language diversity here and everywhere. So what can you do to get to this future of many languages? I don't have a solution for saving all of the minority languages out there, but there are smart people working and thinking on how to protect at-risk languages. We put some links below for some resources. But here's a call to action we can all follow. Support language rights. All languages deserve respect and protection, especially local languages. Don't support policies to make dominant colonial languages official to the exclusion of others. Show people that you're impressed that they can speak another language and that you see the value in all languages, especially smaller and non-European languages. Included in this is not calling languages dialects. The term dialect or dialecto or dialetto is used to make a language seem unofficial, unimportant, and useless. If you speak a minority language, speak it proudly. Use it in as many contexts as possible. As much fun as it is to see people shocked when a YouTuber speaks their minority language, oh Angeluzzo, voglio sentire una picca di nostra bella lingua siciliana.
Un bacio, ti voglio bene. E mi raccomando, non come una minchiate.
We need to normalize the usage of all languages in all contexts. We need to get comfortable with the idea of other languages thriving around us, and then maybe we will start to learn more of them, which leads to the next major thing you can do: learn a second language. This is a tough one for English speakers. I was in a class on the philosophy of education once, and one day we were working on an assignment where we created an ideal curriculum that students must master to be good citizens. So what I did was I offered up a thought. I said everyone should master a foreign language to graduate. What the professor said was, we're talking about expectations that are reasonable here. So this means that he didn't think it was reasonable for someone to actually learn a second language. Any European or African viewer might find this odd, after all, because speaking multiple languages is quite common in many places in the world. Linguistics professor James Kloski says that the English Empire and its descendants were particular in that they require their subjects to not just learn English, but to also abandon their other languages. Monolingual ability in English has been the result in large areas of the world, along with deeply held and unquestioned belief that multilingual ability or practice is rare and exotic. Raise your hand if you think someone that speaks more than 2 languages must have some superpowers. This is a legacy of English colonial practice, so it's up to us to destroy this belief. Now is the golden age of language learning. With so many language learning apps, programs connecting people to tutors across the globe, and hours of content in thousands of languages on YouTube. You don't even have to learn it well. Speak like a cave person, learn to get a simple point across, or learn just enough to understand what's said and respond in your native language. But if you're still scared of the time needed to learn a language well, start with something simple like Toki Pona. With an intentionally simple grammar and only 137 words, you can learn it in a month. Yes, you can communicate just about anything in it, and there's a lot of people to speak with online. It only took me a week to learn, and at the very least, you can use it to make comments on our channel. It's just one option of many, but once you are able to comfortably speak another language, you'll realize it's not a magic skill. It's a normal part of being human that many of us have been missing out on. We can all do our part to make the world a more vivid tapestry of linguistic diversity. Post in the comments if you speak a minority language and if you're working to promote your language. Hasta benedica. Mitawa. Ciao.